This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Tired of losing in fantasy sports? Times are changing. Now it's just you versus the numbers. Prize Picks is the perfect place for you whether you are the biggest sports fan around or you're a seasoned vet in the daily fantasy space. On Prize Picks, you simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go over or under their fantasy projection. Think Denny Hamlin is going to win the big race? Take his over and win real cash today. Prize Picks gives you the chance to win 10 times your money for getting 4 predictions correct. Entries are so simple. They can be made in less than 60 seconds. Sign up today at prizepicks.com or on the PrizePicks app and use code DIRTYAIR, that's DIRTYAIR, DIRTYAIR, to get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. PrizePicks truly is daily fantasy simplified. Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 23 of Dirty Air, your number one podcast for all DFS gambling-related NASCAR talk. It has been a little while since we've been off. NASCAR was off for a couple weeks. Then we were off for a couple more weeks after that, handling some personal things in our lives, just getting that stuff together, making sure that we are able to kind of give you this podcast through the end of the season, kind of full on and with our full attention. So that's exactly what we're going to do. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Baumel, Gambling DFS Tips on Twitter. 2 analysts join me as well. Jason, DFS NASCAR on Twitter. Jason, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? And thanks again for being patient through this break. Like, I know we had to take some time off. I was doing some personal stuff to deal with, so kind of ruined my Iron Man streak that I had going on with the podcast. But there was a lot of people DM me wanting to know when we're going to do it again, if we're still doing it. So it's cool that, like, it sucked taking the break, but it's cool that you guys were reaching out wanting it, so I appreciate that, and it's nice. It's good to get back into this. It kind of hampered my research, I feel like, not having these conversations each week. So,
well, then it's the good news is that, as always, we have our second analyst, Brandon Cruz DFS on Twitter. Brandon is here to help. Brandon, what's up?
Hello, good to be back, guys. I had a lot of stuff going on my side as well. I know Jason had a family matter to attend to, and I've had a lot of things happen over the last 2 months in my personal life that I've had to deal with. So, we're back here.
And fucking life, man, right? Life's crazy.
We were just saying right
dude,
before
when
we came
it rains,
on,
it pours. Yeah.
Sometimes you feel you just kind of coasting through life, and it's like things are good, and then all of a sudden one thing happens, and it's like the next thing you know, you're 10 feet underwater, and you're like, how did I get down here? So, but that's life, and kind of that's hopefully at least this will give you some entertainment and some enjoyment outside of the reality of life, because obviously NASCAR DFS is far from reality, as we saw last week. Who knows what's going to happen in individual race. So let me ask this. I always ask this. How was the race last week? And I'm going to ask this question first. Let's go up until the point before the track broke. Up until that point, Jason, how was the road course last week at Indy?
I mean, I guess it was okay. It was another road course. I don't know. Like, I'm not really into the whole road course race, and I guess it has its moments where it's kind of exciting, where you have some car when guys flat spot the tires, they overdrive a turn, you see dust flying, all that's fun and it's cool to watch. But I mean, these things just typically drag out to be kind of boring, especially for TV, So, but I guess it was an okay race up until that point.
Brendan, I know you're not the biggest fan of road courses either, but for a road course, how was the race?
It was pretty boring up until the end of the race. At the end of the race, that's the most entertained I've been watching NASCAR since plate racing. Like, although we had like the hour-long red flag, like I was out of my seat, standing up, like on the edge. Like I was entertained, fully entertained, knowing that they were gonna wreck.
So you knew that was going to happen? You knew that was coming? Because, obviously I knew there was curb issues, but when freaking was Byron was spinning and then Logano coming into the tire carriers and they're wrecking everywhere. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I had no, but I'm casually watching the race with my boy, and it's a road course, so I knew there was some curb issues, but I had no idea what the hell happened. I didn't expect that at all.
Gosh, yeah. And then the second time it was even better because we were all getting ready, man.
Oh yeah, second.
I don't know if you guys saw, there was a fan video that came out of a guy who was recording it. I don't even know what it was. It was turn 5, 6, 7, whatever turn it was. And the guy's recording right at it, and his reaction and everybody's reaction at track was like, I'm pretty sure it was Earnhardt who yelled it. Everyone had the same reaction. Like, he just basically was like 2 guys off, 3 guys off. It's like everyone's crashing. They're all crashing. It's like something's wrong. It's like nobody knew what was wrong. And then it was very clear, like part of the track had come up. It just, I guess that's wear and tear. I mean, that can't happen in a cup race, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, here's the thing. I mean, it's a racetrack that, I mean, they've raced on. I mean, the Xfinity cars raced on it. I mean, this is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's not like NASCAR built this track, right? I mean, it's the IndyCar. I know these cars are heavier. I guess the curbs didn't hold up. I mean, my question is like, you're supposed to stay off the curbs, right?
So I was saying, Brandon, that goes back to your point, right? This is how the NASCAR Cup drivers drive, and you've always complained about this. They drive a road course, like not on the road.
Yeah, like when you're driving those stock cars, like you're gonna use all the runoff room that they give you. Like I don't blame the drivers for using that. I mentioned on literally by popular demand because I had people asking me to make a rant video on it. I'm assuming that those curbs were made out of like 1/2-inch steel plates. Because I'm assuming like 1/4-inch would have bent way sooner, but if it was like 1/2-inch, like the amount of stress that metal had on itself to buckle over and, basically, vibrate every time somebody goes over that, I don't know. It's crazy that they use metal for that stuff, that they didn't use concrete or like, I mean, they can't use concrete because like, obviously that's not like the normal road course that they run there. They usually run the carousel,
like a heavy duty rubber plastic type thing, right?
No, that's the regular turtles. These were metal like curbs drilled in or bolted into the asphalt on the back straightaway.
When they build a chicane, what does that get made out of?
Well, usually if it's a real racetrack, they just put concrete curbs on there to protect the asphalt. Where here, like those are metal curbs because they're temporary, and like I don't know why they use.
I don't know. Like, I don't know the technology enough about tracks and to know like what are the options to use. I mean, this is probably, I would guess, this is a typical product that is used for road course racing for these Roval type events. I would assume it's not like NASCAR, like just bought something generic. I would assume it's something that's like used quite a bit, and it probably just. I mean, I guess maybe the drivers are being too aggressive on it. I mean, obviously they're not built for these kind of cars. I mean, maybe it's not. We don't have a lot of experience with these cars on these kind of curbing or on these tracks. I don't know. I guess I feel like it seems like NASCAR is like everybody's pointing the finger at NASCAR when it's like, I mean, NASCAR, like they've made some shit decisions, but sometimes it's just like, man, they're just on shit in a bad luck there. Like, I mean, what could they have done different there? I mean, I don't know.
Well, they need
no,
to
yeah, I wasn't blaming NASCAR when I said that kind of earlier, and I know a lot of people are, but it's just one of those things where it's like, whether it's the racetrack obviously owned by Penske, it's like that just can't happen in a NASCAR Cup race. But when you do say NASCAR runs into bad luck and then they do make certain decisions, Brandon, I know there have been very few times this year probably where you've been like, you know what, I'm going to put everything aside and watch this NASCAR race. When they basically set up a ramp, you had to be glued to the TV, right? You were like, somebody's going over that ramp.
I mean, I watch usually every race, and ironically, as soon as they wrecked on lap 1 of the Xfinity Series race, I turned it off because I had no interest in watching it. But usually I sit through every single race for the 5 hours and stuff. But as soon as they remove that curb, because for whatever reason they keep using literally these 1-lane road courses for these stock cars to where guys are clearly side by side. And so when they finally removed that curb, like I knew they were going to hit the other curbing that they had there, which I don't understand why they have that there either. Like,
why not just take it all away? What's the point of leaving that there? What does it do?
Well, it's to deter drivers to not cut the
obvious,
course.
Right.
Yeah. But like, I was already, well, just.
Isn't the risk so much worse than the reward there?
Yeah, it's like they're putting a concrete wall perpendicular to the corner. Like, if you hit that, your car's totaled anyway. Like, I don't know why that's there, especially at other places they have stop and go penalties. But I knew because everybody was already using that curb when they removed it. It just extends that racing lane closer and closer to that curb that McDowell ended up hitting. I don't know. I was purely entertained during all that.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, just the fact that those curbs were there anyway seems a little silly because I mean the whole design of it is to damage the car if they go over it. Like a stop and go is a good enough deterrent, I would think. But just yeah, I'm still to the point though. Like yeah, I know at the end of that race, they should have removed that curb, right? I mean, before they restarted. But I mean, even then, it's there. Like everybody knows it's there. It's like everybody knew that. Like all the drivers knew that curb was tearing up to the race. We seen it grab undercarriages from cars and rip it off, and it's like everybody knew there was problems going on, and they still continuously just were pounding it in the curb. Like you gotta make it 3 laps without hitting that goddamn curb there. Like just take it easy. I mean, like I don't know, like these kids, they drive and it's like they're just balls to the walls every time, and it's like you come to a point where you want to protect your equipment, then you got to fucking drive like you want to protect your equipment, right?
So I'm glad you said that. You're talking about
let Brandon go. Hold on, let Brandon go.
Okay,
go ahead.
I'll let Brian go because
Well,
I mean I don't blame
Brandon.
the drivers for using the racetrack. Like these aren't the turtles that they use at Daytona and at Charlotte, where you can actually go over these curbs. So go over the curbs. Like they're there to be used. I don't blame the drivers. They're there to race. I just laugh at them knowing that when they removed that curb that was going to still, like, Bubba's the only guy who had a brain during that whole race when he realized, hey, someone's going to shove me onto that curb. I'm just going to completely miss it so I don't destroy the car.
I mean, let's be honest though. Somebody's hitting that curb, it's because something went wrong. That the curbing that was there ain't keeping somebody from hitting that perpendicular curb. I mean, people still hit it when the curbing was there originally intact. I know hit it. Somebody hit it in Xfinity yesterday. I mean, the only time somebody's hitting it is if it goes wrong. I don't think the curb that they removed was preventing anybody from hitting that curb.
Like when you look at it, like you want to find the straightest way possible through that turn, and the straight way there is putting your left sides on the curbs on the left side, and then putting your right tires on the curb on the right side. Well, you're still taking that exact same lane when that curb is gone. You just, instead of having that curb on the right side to slow you down, you can still move over a little more. You can move over a couple more feet, get as close to that perpendicular curb as possible, and gain more speed that way. That's why I don't blame the drivers. They're just I blame the track design more than the drivers there.
And also, okay, just to further forward, like Martinsville, it's a track that has that curb there, and a lot of times it's notorious for drivers spinning out on it if they get on it at the bad spot in the corner, right? They'll spin out on it. So drivers know not to hit the curb. Like, I just feel like if that curb is starting to tear up cars through the race, like their crew chiefs should have been on them, like, hey, stay off that fucking curb, I mean, I know you're saying, like, you got to straighten it out, got to run fast as time as possible, but, I mean, we wrecked a shit ton of cars when if they just weren't hitting the goddamn curb, that wouldn't have happened. But I know what you're saying. I mean, maybe it's contradictory. I don't know, but I'm just saying these are supposed to be the best fucking drivers in the world. I mean, the problem is they're on a road course and they don't belong on a road course. I mean, 7 road courses is way too much. I mean, NASCAR put all this new shit on the schedule this season. It's like you're bound to have some mess ups when you do new stuff. Stuff's going to be wrong. So when you have so many new tracks and so much different stuff, Bristol dirt and all this shit, I mean, and everything's been wrong with all of it. It's just been it looks like a nightmare season. They're very aggressive, with their scheduling.
I was going to say, let's not even talk about the curb. Let's talk about turn 1. So turn 1 is like a 90-degree turn to the right. And every other series, F1 goes there. They don't enter like 4 wide. Indy cars, they don't enter 4 wide. NASCAR, these guys don't even know what the braking zone is. They just throw it in there. They're in this corner 4 wide, 4 rows.
And that's what I mean. That's not on NASCAR or track design. Yeah. I mean, that's just these guys. I mean, every restart, there's somebody on the fucking outside taking it 4 wide, knowing you look like you're about to gain 7 spots, but you're not.
Like Kurt Busch got thrown in the grass, Larson got thrown in the grass. That's why I didn't blame Briscoe for quote unquote cutting the track, because there was no room for him to stay on the track. Everyone just moved him out of the way.
So, okay, so there's a lot to get into. And you guys kind of went over some of it. Jason, you inadvertently had set me up for a segue, even though it wasn't what you were talking about. But you had said, talking about young drivers driving kind of recklessly, not necessarily caring as much about their equipment. Obviously, the way the race ended, Jason, did Chase Briscoe know he had a penalty when he wrecked Denny Hamlin? Or was he racing for the win?
I don't know, man. That's between him and God if he knew or not. I mean, it's been, this is like, the left versus right crap. It depends on what audio you hear from who, what version somebody put out, depending on your point of view on it. I can't tell. So, like, between him and God, but I mean, I would, if he didn't think he had the penalty, then yeah, fucking wreck Hamlin. He should, right? He should try to win, right?
So that's the question then. Did he wreck Hamlin or did he race him hard?
I think
Or did he
I
dump
think he dumped him. I mean, but I
Brandon,
mean, can you blame Chase
you
Briscoe,
classify that
right?
as
I
a
mean, if
dump?
you're in a situation going to win, like
Oh no,
you dump him, right?
because you know, in the other situation, if Denny's in a spot where he's got to win to get in, there is no chance he's not dumping you.
No, but Denny can beat Chase Briscoe, right? Denny can pass Chase
Right, but if
Briscoe
he
with
has to
3
dump
laps.
you, he's
Chase
gonna dump you.
Briscoe wasn't going to pass Denny Hamlin with 3 laps. If he let Hamlin get a sniff away, he was never catching Hamlin. His only shot's to dump him. That was my opinion. I think he dumped him.
Right, but even if it's somebody like a Denny Hamlin versus like a Harvick or somebody where he's just not going to catch him, if Denny Hamlin's got to dump you, he's going to dump you. So that's how you got to race him.
No, Denny Hamlin would just talk across the radio like he's going to and just not do it.
Brandon, was that a dump or was he trying to race him hard?
So if I'm Briscoe and I cut that grass, there's no way in hell I don't think that I don't have a penalty. Like I know I have a penalty based on what NASCAR says. I don't believe that the call got relayed to Briscoe because the spotter is the one who relays that. And so the spotter is working his ass off that entire lap. Like there's no way he's not talking to Briscoe. The way those radios are, if NASCAR tells the crew chief we're going to park you or you got to stop or whatever, the crew chief then has to go on channel 2, tell the spotter that, hey, we got to start and park or we got to park or whatever. And if the spotter's talking the whole time, he can't hear the crew chief. And so I fully believe that Briscoe was never told because not only does the spotter have to shut up to listen to the crew chief, he also has to tell Briscoe. And at the same time, I think Briscoe just dumped Hamlin. But if you dump him, don't lie through your teeth in the interview being like, oh, I've never dumped anyone before in my life. I was racing clean. Like, and then Hamlin, somebody take a swing, punch each other. Like, Hamlin
I was just saying, I
more
knew you were going to
physical.
take the opposite side of that, is that people always complain that Denny Hamlin whines, he complains, he whatever. At the end of the race, Denny Hamlin acted like an adult. He walked over Chase Briscoe. They had a conversation. Even afterwards, I know they had some Twitter issues. I know they had kind of that after. Whether he was faking it or not, that was at least a slightly more adult Denny Hamlin, even when he's talking to after the race doing his post game saying, basically that whether he dumped me or not, it wasn't malicious, but it was a kid that made a mistake. He shouldn't have done it.
I think he
Brandon,
thinks Chase would whoop his ass. I mean, personally, I think he thinks Chase would whoop his ass because he was a lot more. I saw somebody tweet this out that he was a lot more aggressive with Danica Patrick when they got into it, and actually he kind of was.
Yeah, but it could still be more
that,
yelling as opposed to not the physical. He still could have gotten in his face and yelled at. I mean, it was just very.
I think he was scared. I think he thought maybe Chase would whoop his ass. Chase is kind of a big boy, and he's a lot younger than him.
I was curious what route the Denny Hamlin haters were going to take. So, okay, now I'm prepared. It's he was too scared of Chase Briscoe of getting his face punched off.
They're all too scared. They're all too scared.
All right. So for the actual road course race, there's a lot to take away from it. I think one of the things thought coming in is kind of what you take out of it. It's Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott in terms of your 2 top road course racers. Is that pretty safe to say, Jason? Or is it 1 then 2, or is it 1 and 2 and then everybody else?
Yeah, I think they pretty much showed that they're the duo to compete with road courses, and it helps. I mean, we've known that for a while, and I think we'll definitely look into the last road course of the season, probably riding those 2 again pretty hard.
Brandon, I know it wasn't necessarily the finish or the ending, the way things worked out that Truex wanted, but Truex had some decent speed earlier on in the race. He seemed to be a guy that finally had a decent road course kind of showing. Anybody else that you were expecting something pretty decent out of and did, or kind of the other way, somebody that you thought might do something and just didn't do anything?
Let me look real quick. I can get this to load. So before everything fell apart.
Yeah, because obviously results are all going to be skewed because of that, for sure.
Poor Truex, man. He had a flat tire. Then he pitted, drove back up to 4th before that caution came out. Kyle's in 5th. Let me sort this by this, actually.
I think one guy who stood out to me, who had a good run going that whole race, Cole Custer. I mean, it's nice seeing him run up in the top 7, top 8, and that's something to take away moving forward to road. I mean, he's shown the ability to run solid on road courses, but we've never really seen him inside the top 10 like this, and that's pretty encouraging. Yeah,
he was consistent there. I'm pretty sure they had people were pitting before that caution came out. 7 laps before.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was 7 to 10 laps, something like that before.
Yeah, because Custer was in 7th. Chastain's still being pretty consistent on the road courses. Cindric just kept having bad luck. Unfortunate for Cindric, because he was 23rd when all that stuff broke out.
Yeah, what Kurt with a couple of non-spectacular road course races in a row. That's kind of interesting. He's the guy who's normally runs a lot. At least the first 5 of these, I think this season ran really well. And it seems like the last 2, he's kind of struggled a little bit.
Yeah, well, Kurt was running in 12th. We should have finished 12th. That's not that bad.
No, definitely not. But he's a guy who you expect to see running top 5, top 6 on a road course. At least this season, how he kind of started.
So, Jason, you mentioned Cole Custer, and obviously we talked about at the end the way that Chase Briscoe had raced Denny Hamlin. But even before that had happened, early in the race, Chase Briscoe, obviously people weren't going to play him as much because he didn't have that place differential. But he looked like he had a pretty good car early on, right?
Yeah, Chase Briscoe. Yeah, he looked like I said, really good, really strong early on. He led some laps. He looked like he was a contender to win that race. Like he didn't get in that position because of a fluke or luck. He ran up front the whole race and put himself in a position to win.
So, Brandon, let me ask you this: is there? You can kind of talk about this, whether it's for this race or kind of just the break that we've been on or anything like that. The thing that I wrote down is what's changed since we've been gone. So whether it's on a road course, a mile and a half, however it's been, what's changed since we've been gone? What's the number one thing that you think's changed?
I think it's just, man, that's a good question. I don't really know. Like from the driver's standpoints from NASCAR, what are you asking there?
Anything, or even the other side of it, of what's something you thought may have changed by this point of the season and hasn't changed.
I think one thing that's changed is that the teams that aren't in the contention for the season have moved their sights to 2022 and working on the next gen car. Like I fully believe that Stuart Haas is fully invested into that. I think Roush is probably in the same situation. I think that Chip Ganassi is putting everything they can into this season. Same thing with a Trackhouse as well. And so let me look at the drivers real quick. So like I think Penske is pretty much zeroed in on this year so far. Obviously Hendrick, and I think that's making them be top contenders. Same thing with Joe Gibbs, and then like I said, the teams that aren't up there, dominating or running as well, I think those guys are more concerned on next year. So like I said, Roush, Stuart Haas, even people like Front Row Motorsports, I think they're just all in on this year. I guess I threw Front Row in there. So Front Row is interesting because they were getting ready for the next gen car, and now we got rumors that 2311 is going to try and buy them out, or they might merge, and so I think they're kind of in limbo. But I think that's where the divide is of teams if they're focused on this year or next year.
Jason, same question to you. Since our last podcast, what do you think has changed the most? Drivers, races, teams, any standings, anything?
I just think it might be interesting to see just kind of like how Hendrick maybe seems to kind of pull back to the pack a little bit since the last one we spoke. We talked like Hendrick was like dominant, like when I think our last podcast, they were just top 3 the entire time. You would always expect them to be up front, and now you still expect them to perform well. But it seems like Gibbs has kind of closed the gap a little bit, and they may not be as dominant moving forward as we close out the end of the season, which we expected to get guys to catch up.
All right. Anything else to recap before we get on to this week?
I can't think of anything else.
All right, let's get on to this week. Firekeepers Casino 400, Michigan International Speedway, 200 laps, 60 laps stage 1, 60 laps stage 2, 80 laps in stage 3. Kyle Larson is on the pole. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Matty D, Martin Truex Jr. round out the top 5. So before we get into actual drivers, so without talking about actual drivers and plays like that, Jason, what are you looking forward to this race, and how are you looking to kind of build a lineup just generically?
Well, Michigan International Speedway is 2 mile, big track. Normally it's a pretty boring race, right? It's a pretty dull race. Like you guys are going to be wishing for some curbs to be thrown in the middle of this track at some point. Normally a lot of long green flag runs. Fuel mileage normally comes into play. Typically, if we looked at the past 4 races here at Michigan, we've seen 3 drivers score just about 40 dominator points, and then we typically have a second driver score that hits that optimal score in around like 10 to 15 dominator points. Not necessarily normally like a 2 dominator build, typically what works out the best on these tracks. And I think one time in the last 4 races we had 2 drivers kind of split equally 20 and 20 dominator points. But typically it's Michigan is a track that you see somebody kind of get out front and kind of hog up a lot of laps, get out there in that clean air, and it just kind of drags on to a boring race.
Brandon, same thing to you. Are you kind of building the same way?
I fully 100% believe we're going to have a boring race, and then we're going to have wrecks at the end of the race. I fully believe that we're going to have guys that come through late in the race, value that shouldn't work, guys that have been running well all day, spin out, get wrecked late in this race. I fully believe it's going to get absolutely ugly if we have a yellow within the last 25 laps, because we've seen that time and time again at Michigan. And last year I know we had the double headers, but this Michigan race I think it carries way more, because the outside lane on restarts is the only place you want to be. If you're on the inside, you're going to lose positions like crazy. I expect the restarts to be 3 and 4 wide into turn 1 just to try and get anything you can, because the restarts are the only place to get those. And we've seen in years past that turn 2 on restarts that are getting, really, really crazy, that's where we end up having people wreck into each other. Like last year, we had Keselowski and Blaney get caught up together. We had one of the Michigan races have a lot of yellows at the end, and I really believe that's what we're going to run into this week, because the restart of this race and Daytona in 2 weeks is very similar to where we're gonna have guys trying to make moves that shouldn't be making moves to try and get into the playoffs, and so I am fully going to embrace some wild stuff happening at the tail end of this race.
All right, and instead of just going directly down the salaries, because salaries just did come out, we're recording this on the Wednesday night. I think it's a good idea. What I was thinking about is, I'll give you guys a couple drivers that stuck out to me as just an initial basic, whether it's just looking at Michigan or kind of just stuck out to me originally. Go over those guys and then kind of fill in the blanks as we go from there. But even as I say that, you have to start at the top, especially when you're at Michigan, Jason, because Kyle Larson, he is 11.5. It's been one of his best tracks, obviously, since when he was in the 42. He's won here 3 times. I'm pretty sure his first win came here. I think it was 2016. Jason, is there any reason to not play Kyle Larson except for the fact that you're just trying to be contrarian?
Well, yeah, that's one thing I don't think we really touched on up to this point is when we're looking at Michigan kind of tracks that I'm looking at to compare to, we're looking at pretty much all the 550 horsepower tracks this year that they've raced on and who's been good in that package. And also specifically like Kansas and Vegas, those are tracks that are most similar, I would think, to Michigan, similar tire wear. And I think we're running kind of the same tire package that we ran at Kansas and Vegas. So, looking at that, when you look at that and those are the numbers that we're looking at and everything, yeah, it points to Kyle Larson. How do you not like Kyle Larson? He put up 112 dominator points at Charlotte, 63 at Kansas, 114 at Atlanta, 51 at Vegas. I don't have to tell you guys, you know how dominant he's been. He starts on the pole. And like you mentioned, this was historically his best track before coming to Hendrick, 3 wins. This is a place that you looked for him to win in the equipment he was in before. And I think you would have to be a fool to if you're a guy who's playing one lineup this week, you guys got to have Larson in it, I would think.
Brent, your thoughts on Larson in terms of how highly owned you think he might be at that 11.5 range, and if you're playing him at that 11.5, how many points are you looking to get out of it?
I don't even remember where he's starting.
He's on the pole.
Okay. Is he on the pole? Yeah, I like Larson. I can't give you an idea of the percentage that I'll probably have on him, but I want to bring it back to the tracks before I get into the drivers. And so for me, I'm looking at the tracks that are purely aerodynamic, tracks that we've seen teams seal off the race car, because that's usually who does well at these tracks. And so I know they're lifting at Pocono, but I like looking at who had the speed to pull away from the field at Pocono. I like looking at Charlotte a lot, and then Kansas as well. Las Vegas too. Those would probably be the main tracks that I'm going to look at this week. But I like the Hendrick stable as a whole. I'm going to try and get to those guys.
So I'm glad you said that, because the next guy I was going to ask is Larson's teammate, Alex Bowman. Bowman, a guy who's been good, obviously, as Hendricks has been this year. We even just talked about Pocono when they had a doubleheader there. Won one of those races, had a 7th in the other. He's got a 4th in Atlanta. Had a 5th at Charlotte. So he's been good at these kind of tracks. But when you look at Alex Bowman at Michigan, he's never finished higher than 10th. He's got some bad finishes here. Brandon, it sounds like you're kind of throwing those away and looking more at what he's done this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at this year. I'm not looking at any Michigan history at all.
Jason, does Bowman's history here at Michigan scare you at all?
It doesn't. Kind of like with Brandon. Like I look a little bit at the Michigan history, like last 4 races, kind of recent, but it's not going to weigh on a guy like Bowman, who's the leap he's made this year and the leap that team has made this year and how dominant they've been in this package. That's not going to really affect me, especially at this price tag. $8,800 seems way too cheap. He's starting 10th. I mean, you got to think he's easily got top 5 upside. I mean, you would think he's going to. I would project him for maybe around like a 6th or 7th place finish, just being conservative, and even I think that would be like a 5x value moving forward. So he's definitely in play in that $8,800. Yeah.
And Jason, kind of the opposite of what you said, where you were talking about Alex Bowman. Kevin Harvick is a guy who hasn't been great this year. He's been all right as of late recently, but if you look at Kevin Harvick in Michigan, he's got good stats here. He's won 3 in a row. He's won 4 or 5. Past 6 races, he's finished top 2, 5 of the 6. But it sounds like you might be looking more at what they've done this year and not necessarily at the history. Does that mean you're not as much on Kevin Harvick?
Well, I am looking more at this year, but if we look at Harvick, he hasn't been the Harvick of old. Obviously, hasn't really dominated. But if we look at Kansas, he ran finished second at Kansas, and even the last 2 races we've had in this 550 horsepower package, Atlanta, he put up 4 dominator points, and he had 10 at Charlotte. So he's had a decently fast car. He seems to be coming on. We're over this halfway point through the season. I don't think it's terrible to go to Harvick, especially starting 8th. He's going to have some position differential upside. I think a 4th place finish and a handful of dominator points out of him. I mean, that's not a bad day for. 10K. I'm sure you could probably find some upside, a lot more out of like a guy like Kyle Busch there. But if you're being different, to pair with Kyle Larson to still be able to play that guy who's got that high ownership, he's going to carry, but you feel like you got Jim in your lineup, then maybe going to a guy like Harvick there isn't really a bad option.
Brandon, your thoughts on Harvick?
Yeah, I like Harvick. I think we're going to see Stuart Haas trim that car out to be extremely quick. Like Jason said, we saw Harvick be extremely fast at Kansas, right? I just X'd out.
Charlotte, he was pretty fast at Charlotte. He finished well at Kansas. He didn't really put up any fast laps or anything, but he did that. He did so at Charlotte, and then also
race rating.
Atlanta again. Both Atlanta races he put up a handful. So
not
terrible.
Yeah, so Kansas. Kansas, he had the 4th best driver rating. At Charlotte, he had the 7th best. I like that. Let me look at his price because
10,000. He's priced right, but he's 5th highest priced. You would be playing him thinking like Byron's going to bust. Like because obviously everybody would probably go Byron there for 10-2. It would be a pivot off of your Byron or your Kyle Busch. And I think your pivots in that range are Harvick, Hamlin, right?
See, I was going to say I think Harvick's going to be fairly popular.
You think? No, I don't think so. Everybody's got sour taste in their mouth. Think about last week. He fucked you in both Xfinity and Cup Series last week.
That's not his fault.
I know it's not. I'm not saying it is, but that plays into people's hearts when they're making lineups. Like it does, right?
But
the casual guys like who've been burned. Like is there a sport you're casually play, right? And if you've played a guy a couple times in a row and he's fucked you, and you don't really do research as a sport you play, like you're not going to play that guy, right?
But even it's like the casual fan, the way looking at it, it's like one of the first things they're going to do when we talk about how they just like box score read, where they just look at all the numbers, they're going to go see exactly what I just said, that he's won 3 in a row here. He's won 4 or 5. He's got finished second 5-6 races. That's what I think people are going to see. Okay, and I think even the casual fan might just
would be, let's just say these top 5 here, top 5 price. Highest owns Larson, right?
Correct.
Second's got to be Byron, right? Right, Byron starting 18. That PD, right? Everybody goes for the PD, right?
I would
Kyle
say
Busch,
I would say
third.
so. I think Kyle Busch and Harvick are going to be right together at 3rd. I think
Kyle
it's going to
Busch
be Larson,
2nd, 3rd, 1st, 5th, 3rd, 10th, and the 550 horsepower package. Everybody's been tweeting Kyle Busch's line this week. Everybody. of how he's been on these tracks.
Yeah, but I really do believe in the Jordan jinx, and I'm not gonna touch Kyle Busch this fucking week. There's no way I'm fucking doing that now.
But what do you so you think Kyle Busch would be lower owned than Harvick?
Yeah, I think so.
No, I think he'll. I would say I think he might be higher, but I think they're probably pretty close together. Like I don't know. I haven't gone through and built lineups, so I don't know how high owned these guys can be. But my thought is that Larson's gonna be maybe not 50, but something close, 40, 45, something like that, if he's not 50. And then Byron probably in that 35, 40 range. I think Kyle's right at 30, and Harvick's probably somewhere between 25 and 30. That's how I would guess.
Yeah, but
I think Hamlin's probably 20.
We're really skipping over the guy who's probably going to be the 5th highest owned driver in this race. Do you guys want to guess who I think that is, or who I think it should be?
Well, I'm not saying these guys.
The 5th highest owned total out of
5th,
anybody.
5th, 6th, yeah. Like, do you know who I'm thinking of? Because this last month, I think I've kind of been outplaying myself, where I try and get too contrarian, and so this week I'll probably be overweight on this driver. You know who it is?
Greg Kazashi?
Still at the top of the board. That's what I was gonna say.
Across the board, that's why I think he comes in at least the 6th highest owned driver.
Is it Brad? Jason said.
No.
Let me see here.
I was gonna go Logano as Penske teammate.
No, it wouldn't be. Who you thinking?
It's Alfredo. It's Alfredo, man.
You think he's gonna be 5th highest? He might be higher than 5th highest, to be honest, at that price.
I don't think he eclipses.
He starts all with 35th. Yep.
I don't think he eclipses 35%. But looking at ownerships recently, like the highest we see is a guy at 49%. And then we have one guy at 43, and then one at 38, and one at 33, right. And then it kind of everybody lands in the 20s. Or I think Alfredo, if he comes in at 34% owned, I want to be over the field on that.
So I was gonna say I think that was the initial reaction that I had too of his price and where he's starting. It's like one of those. Sometimes you just gotta, if he's gonna be chalk, especially with value chalk, it's good value chalk. You just eat it, put it in your lineup, and keep it going. Jason, sounds like that's probably how you have to play this, right?
Also, yeah, I want to say, I'm sorry, I want to bring up one more thing. Why has Quinn Houff been 4,500 for 5 weeks in a row?
I don't know. Why do you know that?
Because I always look at Quinn and I'm like, okay, can he work? And I'm like, this fucker is always 45, no matter what race it is, man. Like, you're not giving Quinn enough credit here.
But yeah, going back to Alfredo, I think he's a play obviously very attractive for everybody starting 35th. Lower than 6K. He's going to be guys going to allow you to squeeze in a lot. And if we looked at both races last year, the optimal for both races last year had 3 guys priced above 10K in it and then 3 guys priced below 7K in it. So if you think that pattern's falling through this, you try to pick out 3 guys below 7K. It's hard to not imagine Alfredo being one of those guys that ends up optimal. Upside, though, I don't think he's got a shit ton of upside past maybe like a top 24 finish. But you would think his downside's probably if he doesn't wreck 26 or something, he's not going to kill your lineup. So he's nice safe, but definitely going to be popular in cash and popular in pretty much every contest. Like I said, I think he might be higher than 5th.
And I also want to say Bell is severely underpriced.
Bell's going to be way up. He's going to be very high on too. Yeah, he's way underpriced.
So going back to last week really quick, man, shout out to you guys if you played Chase Briscoe. You had the nuts the whole race. Briscoe was such a genius play until he wasn't. It's wild how stupid it is. That's
NASCAR, right? Everything.
Or we had
great players until they're not.
And then you had Keselowski as a guy who chalk that I think he should have played, and then he ended up being bad chalk. Then he still didn't kill you with how the race played out, and so I'm not really concerned about Bell's ownership this weekend. Whatever he comes in, if I have him, I have him. If I don't, I don't. But I think there's a good chance Bell is optimal.
Yeah, I don't have the data in front of me, but I'm pretty sure every time I look into this, when you got guys starting this range, 28th on back, for that price tag, who's going to be chalk, they typically always come through. That's just it's a hard price range to miss on that. They're just way too cheap. He would need to wreck, which can happen, but if he runs his race, he's going to be optimal.
So
hold on. I guess that's why we should talk when you're building lineups, right? You know you're going to have some spots that are going to be chalk, right? I mean, playing chalk is not necessarily bad in and of itself, right? It's if you play a chalk lineup. So like when we talk ownerships and we talk a player going to be chalk and stuff, it doesn't make them a bad play. What it means is when you're constructing those lineups, if you got 2 or 3 guys who are chalk in it, you're going to have to try to, throw a little bit of a mix into there. Doesn't mean you have to get crazy with your whole goddamn lineup and fade chalk across the board. But, I mean, each lineup is different in and of itself. As you're building these lineups, you want to build a non-chalky lineup. Doesn't necessarily mean you're not playing chalk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's all about what you pair the chalk with, and that's what I always talk about, especially come football season when people talk about, hey, you can't play this guy, he's going to be chalky. It's like, no, just play him with guys that aren't chalky or build a non-chalky lineup, and then all of a sudden you've differentiated your chalk, like you said. If you don't play chalk with chalk, chances are, you're decreasing the chance, obviously, of it being duplicated or, however many times. But I think it's a good thing you said that on in terms of how you're building a lineup, because the guys that we haven't really talked about, so the 3 Penske cars are kind of all sitting there right in the middle, and if you're playing them, you're almost playing them for different reasons. So Keselowski and Logano, Keselowski's 9,800, Logano's 9,600. Those are 2 guys that have some place differential built in. I think they're starting 19th and 20th, something like that. And then Ryan Blaney's there at 9K. If you're playing Ryan Blaney, you're kind of starting 3rd. You're hoping he's going to lead some laps and potentially, I would assume, finish top 5 and dominate somewhat. Jason, is that what you're hoping if you're playing Ryan Blaney starting 3rd?
You don't really necessarily have to get that. Yeah, top 5 is you definitely don't want to fall back much more in top 5, but you don't need him to dominate. You just need like a handful of dominator points out of him probably to have a decent day. I tell you, what this is right here, that BK and Joey Logano battle right there at 9,800, 9,600 is the one that's got me kind of got my heart in a bunch here, because they both obviously are guys starting 20th, 19th who have like that top 5 upside any given week. In their Penske car, they can make decisions, they can make pit strategy. They're both going to be pretty popular, high owned. But I mean, when we just look at it, when we look at Logano this year in this package, I mean, he hasn't been great. I mean, 19th, 17th, 15th, 9th, 25th. I mean, hardly any dominator points. Hasn't shown a whole lot of speed. I mean, so I don't know how much upside we can give Logano there for $9,600. And then when you talk about Kazashi, this is the type of tracks he's been good on all season. 540 horsepower package. He's got some top 5s. Michigan is a track that he runs well at. It's his home track. You would think this is a smash spot for Kazashi. I would prefer Kazashi over Logano, but then you look at what has happened to this team since he's announced going to Roush. I don't understand. This team has just struggled, and is that has me concerned. This data that I'm looking at doesn't show the last 4 weeks since we've been to, or 5 weeks since we've been to a 550 horsepower package track, and it's been terrible.
Brandon, what's your take on the Penske cars?
I like them all. I like the Fords. I think every time we've gone to Michigan, I've ended up playing a lot of the Penske guys, and so if they fit into lineups, I'll use them. If they don't, they don't. I like them, but I'm not going to go out of my way to get Keselowski or any of these guys.
So if you didn't Penske used to own Michigan, or do they still own them?
I don't think. No, it's just Roush, because Ford's right down the road.
Okay.
Roush engines, not Roush Fenway.
Brandon, if you have the salary to fit any of the 3 of them in, do you rank them in order of how they're priced? The Keselowski would be the first you'd put in, then Logano, then Blaney?
I like Blaney a lot. He'd probably be my first one. Not a ton, but if I had to rank him, I'd put Blaney as my first one, really.
I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Blaney's going to go way, way, way under-owned. I think nobody's going to play Blaney. I think he's just kind of in the spot, starting 3rd. People are going to say there's not much place differential. He's got Larson and Chase in front of him, so you're not really thinking he might get out to the lead and lead some laps. Jason, I mean, there's a chance Ryan Blaney's pretty under-owned, right?
Oh, I think you're right. I think Blaney would be 15% owned, probably lower than that. So, I mean, it's definitely a nice pivot, because you're going to, I mean, like we talked about, we already know Keselowski and Logano are going to be much higher owned. If you're looking to pivot, I don't mind the Blaney pivot, especially in GPP. But I mean, you're expecting it, but you need a big day out of him. You can't make any mistakes for you at that price, starting 3rd.
So we talked about some value with Alfredo at 5,800, but if we're looking at some of these guys in the middle range, kind of to piece together some value, we talked about Christopher Bell. He's 8,100, obviously fairly low price at should draw higher ownership for him. But then you've got other guys in here: Austin Dillon, Daniel Suarez, Chastain, Priest, Reddick, Matty D starts top 5. Cole Custer after a good week last week. Jason, which of these kind of mid-range guys stick out to you? Whether it's I definitely want to play this guy or I definitely am not playing this guy.
I think after Bell in that range that you mentioned, I think probably the next best play is going to be Austin Dillon there, sitting there for 8,000, starting 26. You could probably build a lineup with both these guys in there. I mean, Dillon's been running, top 12 in this pack. Actually, he's got 6 finishes this year in this package of 12th or better. Starting 26, he needs the points. He's going to be aggressive. He's definitely going to push the limits. They're not going to quit on you at any point in this race. Starting 26, you got to like that upside, top 12 upside. Definitely in line for a nice 5, almost 6x value, especially if you can crack that top 10. There's a lot of upside there in Dillon. Suarez, I'm not as interested in. He's had a lot of good runs this season. You can 15th, 11th, 17th, 15th. I guess I'm talking myself probably into Suarez now. So, yeah, Suarez is a good play. All these guys right here, Dillon, Bell, Suarez are good plays. I think the guy who I like the most probably in GPP right here is Reddick. They're starting 14th. He's going to get probably overlooked quite a bit, and a guy who's ran top 10 in this package the last 3 races. And I think he's another guy fighting for those points, and he's going to be there at the end as well.
Brandon, your thoughts on these guys in the mid-range? I know we talked about Bell, some of the guys Jason talked about. Are you talking yourself into Suarez this week or anybody else over here?
I really can't answer that right now because it's going to depend on where I project lineups to do. Because if I project lineups to score in similar fashion, going into the 7K range more than I think I will, like if I have lineups that have Bell, Suarez, and Dillon together over a lineup that has like 3 10K guys and 3 6K guys, then I'll probably consider playing, people like Suarez and Bell more. I just need to see the data supporting, going after these guys, because right now, Jason kind of mentioned it, and I think the optimal lineup does look similar to the other ones we've seen in recent years, to where it's usually 2 to 3 10K guys, or at least 9K guys, and then pretty much value plays in the 6K range. So I need to see where the lineups come in.
Yeah, that's kind of, was my first impression, is I wanted to look, what's this below 7K range look like, to see if that's going to work out this week. And it's hard for me to pick 3 guys below there that I want in my lineup. I think you're going to find when you do this that there is a lot of value in that 8K range like we just talked about. If we talk, just talk it through right now, Christopher Bell, what do you think? He's got a top 12 upside, right? That's being conservative, I would think. That's almost a 6x value if he finishes 12th. Same with Dillon, if he's got top 12 upside, which we would agree with that as well. 5.5x value right there from that spot. And even Suarez, top 18 or so is getting close to that 5x value. So there's definitely a lot of value right there.
Do you have your projections open right now, Jason, or no?
Yeah.
Because I don't have mine open right now. What do you have if you give BJ McLeod 30th?
Let me see here. I projected. Actually, that's what I projected him at. That's 30th place finish. 18 points. So 3.46 value. He's actually my best value that I have here in that 5,400 and below range, but that's 3.46.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty. Because I was looking at lineups. That's why I think Alfredo makes such a good play, because I think it's easy for him to outscore people similar to him, and he only doesn't work if he's involved in a wreck, which it's Alfredo. But yeah, I don't mind Alfredo at all.
Jason, anybody else down either past Alfredo? I know Brandon mentioned Quinn Houff earlier. You yelled at me last week because you're like, everyone loves playing Quinn Houff, and he asked me why I was playing him. I was like, I don't know, he just kind of fit into my lineup. But would anybody below Alfredo, Jason, this week, or you think Alfredo would be the lowest you're probably going?
I think Alfredo would probably be the lowest I would go. I think if you're looking to pivot in that range, I would look to like Michael McDowell for 6,000. Sorry if you guys hear my kid. I think my kid just woke up crying.
You're
Ready to take over a second. I'll be right back.
You're good. Yeah, I don't think this is the week.
Anybody less than 5,800?
No, this ain't the week to do it. That's why I was just asking what he had projected for McLeod, because I didn't have my sheet open to project things right now. That's why I don't like Quinn Houff. he scored very well this year in races that it's either been at Wreckfest or he started dead last. Like, I don't understand why if his price has just been 4,500. Like, the next time he starts last or second to last or 4,500, I'm just gonna play him. I'm just shocked at his price. Like, I don't know, it's just wild.
It seems like DraftKings sometimes does it. Even like sometimes, I don't know if you play like NFL, but sometimes they'll have these like min price or basically min price receivers that have like 4 catches every week. They don't have many points, but it's like they're the same price as these guys that like don't come anywhere close to it. And that's kind of like, I guess, the Quinn Hall thing is like he is one of those guys that, like you said, for the most part, when there is wrecks or there's something, he does find a way to get you some sort of a decent score, as opposed to some of these other guys are more likely to potentially be in a wreck or have. I mean, his I think part of the reason people play him, his car, I don't want to say it's been reliable because it certainly hasn't been reliable, but it's like for what he drives, it's been reliable, right?
Yeah, like the whole he lost a tire at Nashville in lap 1. Okay, like one out of his, like, he's a decent driver. Like, he doesn't wreck equipment or anything. I think he's more, if you want to use a football analogy, he's more like who, at least last year, because I don't know who's on the Bears special teams unit this year, right off the top of my head. But who was the guy who was always doing punt returns and kick returns on the Bears? He was like a 5th string wide receiver, and he was always $3,000 minimum. And there'd be like 1 or 2 games a year he'd either be a wide receiver 2 or 3 or play the slot.
We're talking about Devon Hester. It used to be Devon Hester.
I think it's either him or another guy. I can't think of him right now, but he was a special teams guy that was just always $3,000 no matter what happened. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, I mean, Devon Hester. When Devon Hester played for the Bears, Devon Hester was very rarely used offensively, but did have the kick, punt, return prowess. So I guess it's similar to something like that where you're playing a guy. In terms of where he's probably not going to get points, but he's in a position where there's a chance to get points if things break his way. I guess that's kind of the way to put it.
Let me go here because it's going to drive me crazy. I got to find him.
Unless it was more recent than Devon Hester, I think it was Devon Hester.
I think it's more. I gotta look because it's gonna freaking.
Cordero Patterson was another one.
May have been Patterson. Yeah, it may have been Patterson. Let me look.
Patterson, he's been more recently for them. They've had a couple guys that have been some decent return guys.
I gotta see what he looks like. I just, for the life of me, I can't remember who.
This is what happened. Jason leaves us alone for a couple.
Cordell Patterson. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Well, sorry, Jason. We're talking about the Chicago Bears now, so.
Yeah, we're talking about Cordell Patterson for the. Is he with the Bears this year?
I don't know. He was with them last year, I think.
Okay, but I got interrupted in my Michael McDowell thought. So
yeah, go ahead.
So we're gonna go back like nothing ever happened. So Jason, you were talking about Michael McDowell.
But I like Michael McDowell here starting 25th. If we look at 550 horsepower package, he's been pretty solid at 20th, 13th, 19th, 17th, 6th. That's outside of his 27th place finish at Atlanta, which obviously ain't that great. But you got to figure he can finish right around that top 20, starting 25th. It's a nice pivot off of an Anthony Alfredo chalk if you're just looking to try to get different off that chalk, because really top 20, 19th place finish is all you need for that 5x value out of him here at that price.
Anybody else that we haven't talked about that you think is worth mentioning this week?
Nothing I can think of.
Brandon?
What about Bubba?
What about Bubba?
I can't play Bubba starting 15th. I don't know. You like him there?
What do you give him? Give him 14th. How many points does he have at 14th?
Let's see here. 14th would be a 29 points. What is that value-wise?
It's got to be like a 4-1, top of my head, 3-8, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I don't know why my computer's being stupid. There we go. 4.53.
That's higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's not bad, but that's still a 14th place finish out of Bubba, which I guess he did finish 14th at Atlanta, right? And 14th at Charlotte, so I guess it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, and I'm looking at my Pocono, and I'm not hating Bubba here.
I would prefer Bubba over Jones, Busher, Stenhouse. If you're looking in that range,
So if this is if this is a race where, like I said, I'm kind of thinking that we're gonna have some stupid shit happen late in the race, that makes me like Bubba more. I mean, he's run the Xfinity Series race too. I think that's gonna help him on this. And this is a track that, for whatever reason, Bubba's been really, really good at. Obviously, he had that cheater car in the last Truck Series race that he ran here. He won because they were cheating. But I like Bubba at these big flat tracks, and so I might end up using Bubba more than I should.
All right. Well, I think that's always a good spot to end is Bubba, because the one thing I will argue is that Bubba Wallace, although I guess you could argue the other side, I was going to say he's not committed to winning a race because he wasn't ready to take his car over that ramp last week. But you could also argue that Bubba Wallace was doing everything he could to win the race because he knew if he went over the ramp that it was the end of the car. But all I know is that I'm sure Brandon was sitting there waiting for it didn't matter who, didn't matter which one, right? Just one of them. That's what you wanted last week. That's how you wanted that to end.
I just wanted more. I just wanted more and more guys. Like when they kept showing LaJoy, I was like, keep showing him. Let's get another one.
I was hoping if somebody went over it, like actually went over it and like actually like had some sort of damage to the, like obviously like went over it like fully. I just hope after that NASCAR would have been like, all right, it's time to get rid of this thing.
I was hoping somebody would hit it at an awkward angle and fly into the grass on the right side and flip over.
I was like sitting in a pretty good spot after the fucking first bout of carnage. I don't think I had any of those guys in my main lineup aside from Austin Dillon, but everybody had Austin Dillon, and it allowed my Brad Keselowski to come back to life. And he was in, like you mentioned earlier, he was back to value after all that carnage at one point. And then the fucking last restart happened, and all hell broke loose again. Yeah. And I barely went by on the cash lineups. Man, I'm telling you, dude, these cash games like have been just straight like saving me for like a month and a half solid now. Like just like when shit like that happens, like when the race goes to hell, you can still have a somewhat profitable day, you know. I mean, when everything seems like it goes wrong, I mean, it really definitely helps your bankroll a little bit.
Yeah, it's fucking wild, man. Worst value had Keselowski dead to rights, and then it just all falls apart.
All right, so I know it's been a while since we've done this, but we do still have our 2 and done competition. I'm sure I'm going to have to help out a little bit with what drivers you guys have used and haven't used because it's been a while since we've done it. But let's recap. So the last time we did the podcast was the second Atlanta race, the Quaker State 400, which was middle of July, like a month or I think it was a month ago, maybe even more than that.
It's been like a month.
So Jason had Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch had 54 points. Interestingly enough, I don't know how Jason managed this, but Jason used Kyle Busch at Charlotte and he used him in Atlanta, and Kyle Busch got exactly 54 points in both races. So consistency there from Kyle Busch for Jason. So Jason had Kyle Busch. He stays in first place, 735 points total. I had Austin Dillon, who had 27 points. So I'm in second place at 688. And Brandon, you had Eric Almirola. He had 14 points, 636. You are in last place. So you, once again, first pick this week.
Going first. Let's go on Tyler Reddick.
You've used him once, I don't believe. Nope, you've not used him twice. So, all right, let's do that.
I'm pretty sure I was saved because my strategy, like I said, was to use all, the quote-unquote bad guys early in the season. Then once we get to close to the playoffs and in the playoffs, start using all the good guys. Well, there's a good chance I would have used either Kyle Busch or Truex at New Hampshire. Oh, man. So I guess we got lucky there.
All right, so I'll got you down for Tyler Reddick. I'm going to take next. I will take I'm going to use Kevin Harvick.
Fucker. God dang it.
I think it's a good spot. I've used him once. It's a good spot to use him a second time. So I'm going to use Kevin Harvick here. Jason?
I was going to use him. Nah, you just screwed me. Do I have Denny Hamlin left?
You do. You've used him once, so you've got him once.
Do I have... Let's see here. I don't know why I always make this so hard for myself.
Well, it's been a while. It looks like you have everybody except for Chase, and that might be Chase and Kyle. I think you've got at least one of everybody else.
Who haven't I used twice?
Who haven't I used at all?
Chase,
Kyle, and Larson. Chase, Kyle, and Larson, only 2 you've used twice. Who haven't you used at all? You've used Truex, Logano, Bell, Blaney, Hamlin, Priest, Byron, Harvick, Reddick, Busch, McDowell, Bell, Larson. I didn't say them twice. The guys you've used guys twice, but those are all the guys you've used. I don't think you've used Brad. You have not used
Hamlin.
Brad. All right, so you're gonna use Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got Denny Hamlin. I've got Kevin Harvick. Brandon has Tyler Reddick. That is what we're gonna do for 2 and done this week. Yeah, so I would say if there's not much else to kind of go over, Jason, it's been a while, so why don't you remind the people where they can find all your stuff at?
You guys can find my content each and every weekend, normally released in the morning of every race day at www.freenascardfs.com. You can find me on Twitter at DFSNASCAR. I think that's really it, yeah. Check me out. Give me a follow.
Brandon DFS, YouTube, Twitter, and Patreon.
All right, and you guys know as well, you can follow me on Twitter, Gambling DFS Tips on Twitter. Also, if you could do me a favor, I just started my other podcast that I host for the NFL season and UFC. It's called Chasing Winners. iTunes, Spotify. I got a YouTube channel anywhere. If you guys could subscribe to that, we're going to do a weekly podcast there for NFL season once that comes up. For everyone that listens here.
He's leaving us, Brandon. He's leaving us. He's going to go into bigger and better things.
I don't blame him, man. I don't blame him. The NFL is where the real tension
NFL
is.
starts and everybody forgets about NASCAR DFS. This is such a sad time in our life. And now our fucking host is doing NFL podcasts and.
So what wasn't said is that my NFL podcasts are scheduled around this podcast because, as always, first come, first serve, and they started first. So
I know, and they start in January and we start in February, so you're just going to forget about us next year.
NASCAR runs 13 months in a 12-month year. Like NASCAR doesn't take a break. That's how it feels like. But yeah, for guys anywhere, no matter where you guys are listening to this podcast, make sure you guys subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff helps us keep it free for you guys to give you guys kind of that content you want. Next week, Daytona, final race before the playoffs. I think this year it's called the Coke Zero Sugar 400. I may have gotten that right. I may have gotten that wrong. I think I got it right.
Pepsi.
Yeah, everyone's got their own names. So, as always, on behalf of Jason and Brandon, I'm Brian Baumel. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.